Welcome to Beerfield, where unlike the Fifth Saints, we wagered our future a long time ago. I am your host, at Beerfield Hop, with 2 P's. Pause to remember my own Twitter handle, Chris Hopper. As always, joined by Beerfield Theory, Dan Theory.
What's up? It's been a day. I'm gonna have a super long day tomorrow. I'm looking at like a 15-hour work day.
Gross. Why?
Rolling with one of our craft brand managers for our home market wholesaler, and then I have a tap takeover.
Oh wow!
So I got to be up by 6, and our tap takeover starts at 6 p.m.
Nice.
So, and it's a 2-hour drive for me.
Yeah, but music bingo.
What's it? Yeah. What's that?
But music bingo. Is that this?
Well,
one?
no. This is a different one. Music bingo is in 2 weeks from tomorrow, and then the week after that is the NFL draft.
What's this one?
This one is just a random takeover that our wholesaler set up with our beers that I had no clue about. I just got an invite saying tap takeover. I'm like, oh, cool. I want free points.
Where at?
Ottawa.
Canada, eh?
Illinois. Yes, we're going to Canada. And somehow it's still only a 2-hour drive. It's impressive.
If only.
If only is right.
As Dan mentioned, the NFL draft is just 3 weeks away from Thursday. 2 weeks from Thursday. No, 3 weeks from Thursday.
3 weeks from Thursday.
3 weeks from Thursday. So we're going to break down some AFC team needs today. That's this week. Next week, we'll try to get a guest on to talk quarterbacks and wide receivers. My mic stand just decided it wanted to try to yeet itself. So I'm going to fix that. And then I said quarterbacks and wide receivers. What I meant was quarterbacks and running backs. Look at that awareness to know as I'm catching a falling mic stand that I said something incorrectly. And then
seasoned vet move right there. You wouldn't see that done by a rookie.
Nope. Let's see.
That's why we get paid the vet minimum.
Or somebody that's just doing Twitter hot takes. Don't see them adjusting mic stands live on air. Just saying. Probably
calling the
because
police
they have
force.
better equipment.
Calling the police force, asking why my mic stand's broken. Got a hot tip, boss.
Quarterbacks and running backs next week. Wide receivers and tight ends the following week. This is where you get the full kind of rundown of what we think about each prospect. It's one of our favorite series to do because it's all of our reveals. Kind of who we like, who we don't like, who we're rooting for to go where. And that will immediately all change after the draft. So we're not really going to get into rankings. We'll just kind of tear it off and call it that, and then hopefully get a lot more sorted out after the NFL draft. We will not be doing a live stream for the NFL draft. We will do a reaction episode at some point. The reaction episode may not be an immediate reaction episode, but we will have reactions. So kind of a look at what's coming up. But for this show, we're going to go with what's fueling Beerfield.
What's fueling Beerfield?
What are you drinking?
I am drinking a beer that I stored away to my mini fridge because I'm bad at my job, and by job I mean my hobby that used to kind of feel like a job. And I forgot to get beer, but this is why most of my mini fridge is full of barrel aged stuff that it just kind of ages well. I have Deep Flux. It's from Boulevard. They did a collaboration with Three Floyds. This is from last year. I think before I left Benny's, so at least a year old. It's funny because the bottle date on this says it's got to be best enjoyed by October of 2021, which is clearly past, but it's a 14.3% ale age or whiskey age pale barley wine ale.
Huh.
They also finished it it's aged in rye whiskey and Madeira wine cask.
Oh, Madeira.
Madeira. Is it Madeira? Yeah, Madeira. Madeira wine cask. For those of you that may not know what Madeira is, it is a Portuguese wine, a Portuguese fortified wine named after the island which the grapes come from. So,
and it comes in both sweet and dry varieties. I just learned this because I'm making Madeira chicken this week.
Oh, look at that!
So,
yeah, so I don't see how a 14.3% rye whiskey age has a best by date, but it's all right.
I mean, it could.
I mean, I'm sure there's stuff that falls off, and I have no clue what it tastes like prior to it. So
the Madeira cask finish probably is going to be some of those fruity, grapey notes will drop off quick.
I can see that. I'm enjoying this 6 months, but it stayed in the mini fridge for a very long time, so it's been in decent conditions in terms of sitting out in the sun or anything.
All right, I have a German style Maibach lager. This checks in at 6.2%. This is from Moore Brewing Company. It's their Bartlett Maibach out of Huntley, Illinois. In Villa Park, Illinois. So this was actually picked up at Benny's last weekend. So Maibach, for those that aren't familiar with it, otherwise known as a Hellesbock, it's just a light version of a Bock beer. So it's designed to be malty, grainy, but lighter. Obviously, this is, if you're on YouTube, Beerfield Podcast. This is obviously not a Bock. It's much lighter. It's lager style. Look at that. Look how good you can see my eye through that. Like, the camera's even picking that up.
That
is impressive.
Impressive.
That is impressively clear. So a little bit lighter, a little bit more hop forward, still higher gravity, higher percentage on it. Designed to be malt forward and easier drinking. So, yep. I have one of these actually fermenting in the garage right now.
Oh, hopefully should be ready before draft. 3 weeks out.
It will be. You'll get to try it. It's a festival beer, but it'll be ready. It's cleaning up now, so it'll go into a keg next week. So it'll be ready by draft.
So there's a fun fact. You said Moore Brewing, correct?
Yes.
You remember playing disc golf with my buddy Will?
I do.
Think you played with. Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
Okay, his ex-girlfriend used to work for Moore.
Nice. Yeah, I remember. He's we played with him at Duncan, right?
Yes, yeah. We're trying to work on a time where he can come down, we can meet up.
Cool.
We have a few courses in between that we've played at before that I need some revenge on because they were tough. They were tough. I went out with Dickie after we played.
Yeah, he told
on
me
Sunday.
I couldn't even if I wanted to. I was.
Oh, I know. I
felt
get it.
No, not just travel. I mean, just 18 holes for only the second time in the season. I was a little tired.
Katrina played both rounds, as you know. She played in the morning round. She played this Sunday evening round with myself and Dickie. She was hurting. Dickie whooped my ass. That dude is in mid-season form.
Already?
It's barely fucking April.
Barely April,
and the dude's just, I don't know, man. It finally just clicked for him right now.
Grabbed some new plastic yesterday. I realized I realized while we were out that I had a hole in my bag for a understable approach disc. I've got an understable mid-range. I didn't really have an understable approach disc. So as I was trying to, flip around some trees, it made it a little more difficult. So I went out and bought a sole, which is basically an understable zone.
Yeah.
It's
more of a mid. I think it's more classified as a mid-range show, isn't it? Isn't it 5-speed?
It's a 5-speed, and that's why. Actually, no, it's a 4-speed. It's a 5 glide, which is why it's classified.
Yes,
as
that's why it's a hybrid. Yeah, yep.
It's a hybrid.
I've been looking at those.
It's got a little bit more glide than the zone. It's like a zone, but it dives the other direction, pretty much, when thrown flat.
Yeah.
So it's flippy. It likes to turn over. It's exactly what I was looking for. And then
you can hyzer flip it pretty well too.
You can, if you ever have a need to hyzer flip an approach disc.
Hey, just say, I'm sure some of these pros have done a tunnel shot 350 feet.
Speaking of things you can hyzer flip, I also bought an Avenger SS.
Those are nice
for no other reason than it was a pretty color and it was probably about $5 cheaper than it should have been.
I love disc golf. It's kind of like it's how my dad describes my uncle's musky baits, where color really doesn't matter because the base will catch fish. Like in disc golf, the color really doesn't matter. It's
well,
it looks pretty.
You say
looks
that,
cool.
and then until I go throw my Mystic, which is brown, out in brown grass with a bunch of dead leaves on the ground.
That is true.
And then tell me color doesn't matter.
Color does absolutely matter when it comes to time of day.
And figuring out where shit goes. Time of day too, yeah. Darker colors harder to find. All right, on to news. So we'll start here. Diggs, 4 years, $104 million from the Buffalo Bills. That's added on to his current deal, so he's going to be 6 more seasons in Buffalo. Should effectively end his career there.
$70 million guaranteed, 5 more than Devontae. Again, we knew the wide receiver market was about to be reset, and obviously that got kicked off with Adam Steele. And now we have teams. I've seen some stuff floating around on Twitter, and some of the big names are talking about who's getting maybe paid next. It's who might be getting moved. We heard rumors of DK. There are some very small rumors about teams reaching out about Debo and AJ Brown.
AJ Brown was one I got this week. Yeah,
it is absolutely. Again, I mean, we mock the salary cap, but it's all looking into team situation where money needs to go. I'm a little surprised about both Debo and Brown. Obviously Metcalf I don't think will get traded, but it makes the most sense just given where Seattle is.
Apparently the Jets offered the 10th overall pick from as part of a package deal for DK Metcalf, and it was immediately turned down.
Yeah. Maybe next year when it's a better QB class. I'm not really sure.
Ian Rappaport was on McAfee's show this week, and I listened to that as I was going out to do some field work the other day. The AJ Brown rumors are, I guess, according to Rappaport, more just teams calling, because most teams won't say somebody's off limits, but not that he's necessarily being shopped or requested a move or anything like that. And then kind of the same thing with Metcalf. And then he had a really interesting point, though, that he and Pat got into. Go back and listen to it. It was Monday's episode, I believe. But that he and Pat got into, which is how the perception of wide receivers doing this has changed over the years. Because, I mean, wide receivers are getting paid now like never before. But, beforehand, if you had a guy that wanted out or wasn't happy with his current team, I think about Ochocinco in Cincinnati. Yeah. Owens multiple times. They were labeled a diva and a locker room cancer and hard to work with. And now it's just kind of accepted that, when a guy wants out, instead of these teams doing it negatively, it's, well, they're not making him happy. Maybe we can offer him more. Maybe we can make him happy. Maybe we can give him a better situation, and are actually ponying up the money. And I thought that was a real interesting note on how things have changed even in the last 10 to 15 years.
Yeah, I mean, it's great from a player standpoint because these guys are starting to get their real due. Diggs' contract, especially, that's 6 years now. I don't remember ever a wide receiver getting an extension just 2 years into a 4-year deal. And now there's 6 total left on his contract that's going to effectively that should effectively see him retire in Buffalo, which is what both Buffalo and I think Diggs wants. Just teams committing to the important players on their offense, knowing that the wide receiver position is very important to how the NFL is being moved today, where it's not so much running backs anymore. It's obviously a lot more pass heavy. So having a guy like Diggs and then having, these higher name guys that will eventually get paid, like we're about to see between Jefferson, next year potentially, and then Chase after the 23 season potentially. It's absolutely insane.
Well, Metcalf coming up, AJ Brown coming up. I mean, there's going to be
the
market's going to get reset a bunch. And, it's not just wide receivers either. The Dolphins just redid Xavier Howard's deal. And he had 3 years left, but didn't like his contract. So, I mean, you're starting to see now where teams are going, and this is real weird for the NFL, but where teams are going, guys with 2, 3, multiple years left on their deals, already getting extensions tacked on, already getting, deals reworked in an effort to more so try to keep the player happy. It's like the players in the NFL seem to have a bit more say in how they get to control their career than probably any other league right now.
It's probably, I'm sure with these reconstructions and extensions, the teams are getting a lot of bonuses from it. With the salary cap seeing a big increase after the COVID last season or after 2020, you're seeing a lot of teams, and great podcast to listen to. Both of us are huge fans of. It's a Decision Point podcast. Anand Naduri is on with Matt Kelly, Podfather. The only podcast I know, at least offhand, that will truly break down some of this. Anand used to work as he used to be a salary cap expert, so he's very familiar with a lot of how these deals work, and it's just fascinating to see it and to see void years becoming more and more popular, especially for the quarterback position, as ways to prolong guaranteed money, so these teams can stay in these windows longer and longer, and it really helps us out and it helps the listeners out become better fantasy players as you get more knowledgeable about why contracts are given out the way that they are, and how you can kind of predict potentially where teams could be going.
Especially when you're trying to assess long-term dynasty value.
There's a lot of shit. There's so much more information than just, rookies and random, free agents and what your favorite ESPN guy would tell you. Not to say that ESPN doesn't know anything, but it's just, there's a lot more out there. There's a lot of, there's a lot of smaller guys, man, that just put in the fucking work, and there's a lot of information that can be gathered.
Yep. What this does for Dick's dynasty value, by the way, is it ties him to an elite tier quarterback for essentially the rest of his career. Regardless of how he ages, the volume and, the quarterback should be there. At least Allen's already gotten paid. So, this solidifies him long term.
He's got a great sales kit that's going to age like fine wine. Eventually they'll, move him inside as a, primary inside slot guy. And he's never been overly athletic, so you can even still get that from the outside. Like, you could see a Fitz, type of career lawning to an Adam Thielen's in the same position now, in which obviously played with for his first few years in Minnesota. So Diggs is going to be a fantasy value for years to come.
And he'll have to be able to go that long, like Edelman or Thielen Edelman or Fitz or some of these other guys, because he's already 29, 30, 28. So he's there through 34. So, that's beyond the prime. This is a guy who should, in theory, for most other people, Diggs is elite, but for most other people, be on the downswing of their career. And he just got extended for 4 more years. So,
yeah, and you'll always be a veteran guy that you can get. He may not be a wide receiver 1 for much longer, as we have to anticipate Buffalo is going to look to add in
at least one like next building block into Josh Allen's now prime career, where you can have a veteran guy like Diggs, think Beasley, but 1,000% better that he can lean on, and then also have a young outside receiver. I would assume, along with some of his more specialty guys like Davis and McKenzie, that can really get, like, this Buffalo's offense. Buffalo's the best team I think on paper right now, and we're going to talk about them later.
Yeah, it's if you're a Buffalo fan, you got to be feeling yourself, man. But yeah, fun.
Devontae Parker traded to the Patriots. I believe that it was a 5th-round pick for compensation here.
He got traded himself in the 5th round for a 3rd-round pick.
So Dolphins,
masterful.
So Dolphins get a 3rd, which good for them.
Amari Cooper got a 5th and a 6th-round pick.
Yeah,
Parker gets a 3rd.
He gets a 3rd. And it's tough. So the Dolphins get a 3rd, which is good. They didn't. Parker became expendable with the Tyreek Hill trade. So with Hill and Waddle, we'll talk more about the Dolphins here in a minute as well, but Parker not really needed on that roster, and then he goes to in-division trade, which is weird.
Yeah, right.
But which maybe the Dolphins know something about Parker that we don't, or that we do rather. But
at this point, we probably know
we
enough.
probably do. Parker goes to New England, though, and the thing about that landing spot is that even though you don't anticipate that being high volume, I mean, he's immediately got a spot. He's immediately potentially the best wide receiver on that roster. I don't know.
I like Jacoby for
Myers
for the skill set.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, can you say he's clear cut better than Devontae Parker? I don't think so. We're gonna find out, but I don't think so. I think
Parker's your best outside guy for sure.
He is. So what is that worth? He's gonna have some flex value. You don't throw that through the roof, but right now, heading into the draft on this day, April 6, 2022, Parker is at least in that wide receiver 3-4 week to week flex value type range, being the best outside receiver in New England. I mean, we saw, Kendrick Bourne there last year?
Yeah.
Be very usable in that type of role in some weeks. So it's not nothing. It's just not huge.
I'm interested to see if New England's going to kind of, increase the anticipated, passing volume in this offense, right? It was 2 tight ends, run the football, have specialized receivers fit certain roles. Parker immediately becomes their best outside option. I think he pairs well with Myers. As just a guy has a great skill set to fit with Mac Jones, who's a very accurate quarterback and very high level, even given his age, in terms of rhythm and timing with his throws. Parker gives him that true deep threat. I don't know how much fantasy value outside of what you said, top, wide receiver 4, maybe some flex certain weeks. But if the Patriots have to throw a little bit more, and there's going to be a lot more matchups this year that are going to have them throw the football more as the conference itself got better. There might be some weeks where Parker is goes off for 100 in the tutty.
Well, and the fact is, we just don't know what New England's offense is gonna be. McDaniels is out, and you've got right now Bill Belichick and Matt Patricia, 2 defensive guys running that offense. So who knows?
They're gonna throw us all off for a loop. Mac Jones throwing 700 times this year. He's gonna outthrow Joe Burrow.
If Mac Jones hits 520, I'll be pretty surprised.
Yeah, same.
All right. Saints released Blake Bortles upon his request. The rumors Denver may be in the quarterback sweepstakes there for the backup.
So he returns back to Denver?
He's tied to Nathaniel Hackett. That's where he was most successful, was in Hackett's offense in Jacksonville. So had to be something there for him to request his release.
Well, I'm assuming. Did he play for Denver?
He did.
Was he on their team at one time? Okay.
He was the practice squad quarterback. He was part of the group, or was signed when... No, he was part of the group that all went down with COVID for the...
That's right.
The Kendall Hinton game.
Okay.
Yeah, he was part of that group. So, yeah, he was in Denver.
Blake Bortles is going to have a long career. Good for him.
Just bouncing around.
Around.
Nah, it's the offense he was most successful in, so...
Yeah.
If you're serious, go make him a backup. Although that ends the dream of Jameis and Bortles being on the same QB in the same QB room.
I know that your heart is hurting a little bit, but
it did.
With us together, we'll get you through it.
Speaking of Saints, blockbuster trade was just all. This is a big what the fuck.
Yeah.
So Eagles and Saints made a trade of a bunch of draft picks, which you normally don't see just draft picks moving around ahead of the actual draft because you don't know how any of that's going to unfold. But by God, they did it. So the Eagles walk away with the Eagles gave up the 16th and 19th overall pick, and a 2022 6th. So 16 and 19 to move up one spot to 18. And then acquire a third this year, a seventh this year, a first in 2023, and a second in 2024. So the Saints, we talked about how they could quick retool, and this seems like that's what it is. You bring Jameis back, and you need O-line help, you need wide receiver help. You immediately give yourself 2 first-round picks. We know the defense is kind of towards the end of the window. We know that, Kamara is, with that running game is kind of near, I don't want to say the end of a window for Kamara, but look, we're Kamara was 2017, right? So we're 5 years into that now, which is running back shelf lives are short. I think the Saints felt their window was closing and needed to retool on the fly, so they go out and give themselves 2 first-round picks, which should offer some immediate help. Interested to see how those are used because, they did leapfrog the Eagles and the Chargers here. So I guess first off, what are the Saints looking for with these picks? We've talked about it being, potentially wide receiver, but we've also talked about how moving up, because of how clustered these wide receivers seem to be, moving up in the draft for a wide receiver just seems kind of silly.
Yeah. It's hard to get a gauge on what the Saints are actually trying to do. There's been speculation that the Saints could use these picks to move up, try to grab one of these quarterbacks. Especially when, with the pro days ending or not ending, with a lot of the top quarterbacks already having their pro day, there's been a lot of increase in mock drafts where they're going. We're starting to see a lot more, 2 or 3 in the top 10, top 15 that could shake things up. And, there's, you see a lot of smoke thrown out at this time, but I think, like you said, I think they're going to try to shore up some of the holes that they believe they have. Offensive line, trying to get themselves a potential another wide receiver to pair alongside Michael Thomas. They likely need an answer at running back for Kamara. While Kamara is still going to be fine, we need to know what type of punishment it's going to get from his off the field issues from this offseason, and just needed back up there.
A game, and then if anything.
Yeah, and then probably more so as a backup as Kamara. You probably want to have another. You try to want to redo what you had with Kamara and Mark Ingram during Kamara's big years, and then from a little bit from last year's, and then use the rest of those picks to shore up some of the depth at defense. So I think it's fool's gold. I don't know why you would pick this class to move up to. It's just, especially pre-drafts, not knowing what the board looks like. This is a huge one for Philly because they took 3 picks, so still have 2 picks in the first round, have an extra pick next year, and then they get a high-value pick in 24. However, Roseman may make some very questionable decisions. This is arguably one of the best deals he got. And he got a first-round pick for Carson Wentz. Like, a pick that turned into a first-rounder. This is masterful because it gives Philly even more options for next year if Hurts may not be the answer.
I've been tough on Howie Roseman, but this, I agree, it's a great move. The Eagles roster is not so far gone to where you can't afford to push some of that draft capital out a bit, which is what they did, giving themselves some additional currency for next season. And it really plays well and plays very well into what they're doing with Jalen Hurts. If Jalen Hurts takes strides, then you have a first in 2023, an extra one, an extra second in 2024, and you can really play around with that. You still have a first-round pick. They still have 1 or 2 first-rounders. They still have 1,
They have
right?
2.
They still have 2.
They have 2 now.
They still have two first-round picks to solidify that roster now, as well as getting the extra third to help add pieces. So Jalen Hurts is what you expect Jalen Hurts to be, or he takes strides, then, sorry, not what you expect him to be, but if Jalen Hurts takes strides, then you've suddenly built this up around him. You've got him maybe some additional weapons. You've got him maybe some additional protection and a defense to do that. And if he's not, Well, then you've got your first and the Saints' first next year to maneuver around, maybe move up, get one of the two quarterbacks that for next season that look like they're going to be high in draft capital, like Stroud, and play it that way. So the Eagles have positioned themselves with a lot of flexibility that I think a lot of teams would love to have, to say, we're going to put pieces in place around Jalen Hurts this year. And if you can't do it, we're also in a position to move on next year. And if he does take strides, but maybe we're still lacking elsewhere, then we're in a position to solidify it, and we've got a Super Bowl window. So the Eagles are in a very enviable position. I think the Saints really set themselves back by trying to make one more run at it, and you might get into the playoffs, but your goal shouldn't be just to make the playoffs. And the Saints are not – they're playoff contenders. They're not Super Bowl contenders, and you just wagered a lot simply to make the playoffs.
Yeah, it's it may look like they're going to take it this year, and we'll get a better idea from players. But just like you said, it's the flexibility that really gives Philly the big W here, and what they could get in return for Hurts if they decide to go quarterback. All you got to do is trade Hurts, and they can still retain one of those 23 firsts. It just opens the door for a lot of things for them to do, and yeah, it's a great move by Philly. New Orleans, it'll help them this year. It may help with some with some cap relief from the previous regime and setting everything back. The more you reconstruct, the more you keep pushing back these years, eventually it's going to come back to you. And the Saints are feeling that. Philly felt it the last couple of years. Minnesota's starting to feel it a little bit too. You can only keep pushing back for so far until it's time to come. The Rams, masterful as they come, eventually it's going to come for them. They're going to have to start making some, for some of those gutsy decisions. So, yeah.
Yep. All right. I think that pretty much covers all we can dissect from that trade. So let's go ahead and start jumping into a little bit of this AFC rundown. As we did the NFC, we'll go division by division, kind of look at their rosters and go from there. So let's start with the Bills, who you mentioned might have one of the best rosters out there. So your skill positions, they have Isaiah McKenzie, who they re-signed. They added Jamison Crowder. You've got Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis slotted in outside. So you're 4 deep at usable wide receivers. Jake Kumaro also hanging around on that roster. He's flashed some at the NFL level. They are pretty well locked up across the offensive line. Couple names there would be like Mitch Morse and Roger Saffold, and then you got Dawson Knox back, Josh Allen back. So they're looking really good on the offensive side of the football. Most glaring hole on the offensive side of the ball, to me, is that running back position.
Yeah, it's the most obvious glaring hole from a pick standpoint. They have all their picks, and then they have an extra 6 from Carolina and an extra 7th from Atlanta. This just is going to give them the ability to kind of take best player available. Everyone under the sun thinks that Buffalo is going running back the first 2 days. And 19 and 20, they went running backs in the 3rd round, and Devin Singletary and Zach Moss. Both of them are very good at football. Needless to say, they may not be the best at scouting running backs, or they just don't need to have a hype. They don't need to keep wasting, capital to get there. Whoever Buffalo decides to draft, though, is going to see a significant bump in fantasy value, and will likely become, outside of Hall and Walker, a big maybe. But running back is the most important thing from a potential glaring need, and it may not matter for how they run their offense.
So you've mentioned Pierce is a potential late round back. Brian Johnson is also another guy that's not getting a high round.
Brian Robinson.
Sorry.
No, you're good. I was like, fuck, there's another running back I got to add.
No, it was Robinson. Sorry. I picked the wrong name. Brian Robinson is another guy that's getting later round capital that I know that we both really, really like. And, the one knock is pass catching, and that's really where Devin Singletary excelled, was being used kind of outside and pass as a pass catcher. So you don't have to write off Singletary. We can write off Zach Moss all we want. I'm good with that. But you don't necessarily have to write off Singletary or the fact that you brought in Duke Johnson if you go with one of those two guys who are projected to be more your between the tackles type backs anyway. And you don't have to spend high draft capital there to get them. So that's kind of a scenario.
Brian Robinson is he's going to go day 2. He had a good enough combine.
So
he plays for
spend a third round.
He plays
pick.
for Alabama.
Yeah.
Yep, they could spend a third. I've seen him go between 2 and 3 in mocks, so it's going to be somewhere in day 2. Singletary is good enough. I'm intrigued to see if Duke ever carves out a role in the passing game. That's because it's hard to quit. Duke Johnson.
Duke Johnson is just kind of a rehash of Singletary, but more athletic, personally, older too. At this point,
I'm still praying that Buffalo goes for a running back with an all-purpose skill set. I think you and I will both squirm if Rashad White lands there as a late third round pick. He gets the day 2 DC and wheels are out for his profile.
White,
especially compared both Whites.
Yeah,
Zamir's got his injury issues, but he tested exceptionally well for a guy who's got a lot of knee problems.
Keontae Ingram's a guy that I really like, that I think is
Keontae
a good skill set that would mesh well with Buffalo. I think he would do really well there. But more on that next week.
Yeah.
The fact is that running back's their most glaring hole there. Look, on the defensive side of the football, they could certainly improve there. They did it by signing Von Miller. Could never have too many pass rushers if they wanted to go that route. Pretty good at linebacker. Really good in the secondary, too. I mean, you could... Cornerback depth in today's NFL is also something you could always afford to add. To say nothing of how good Tre'Davious White is. Their safeties, Empoyer and Hyde, are both very, very good as well. But cornerback depth behind Tre'Davious White and pass rush, I think, are the other two most likely things I look at Buffalo and I'm like, okay, these are holes that I would like to see them address.
They could just literally add anything. That's like they're at the disposal of best player available, or they can do what a lot of teams should almost always do and just trade down and acquire, cheap, depth pieces that will allow you to be able to pay your stud players.
Well, and they have a good look at what that's like because they've locked up their wide receiver 1 and they've locked up their QB 1. And Saffold was signed as a UDFA and Morse was signed as a UDFA. They've got Tre'Davious White locked up, I'm pretty sure. So I'm not sure what longevity looks like here, but they're in better shape than anyone else.
And they also have, as of right now, they have the most cap space.
Somehow, because Allen's extension hasn't kicked in yet. That's why.
Yeah.
So,
White is, you are right about White. White actually has the biggest cap hit.
Yeah.
Him and Josh Allen have the 2 biggest cap hits.
So, right, I mean, they've got people wrapped up. That's the other thing. So they have flexibility, they have depth, they have draft capital to spend, and they're in a great spot, Buffalo.
Absolutely.
All right, looking at Miami, we mentioned Parker being expendable, and he was. That's because they went out and signed Cedric Wilson, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. They're exceptionally improved. They got Trent Sherfield and Preston Williams as depth. We've seen both of them have success at the NFL, so they're, you could argue, 5 deep at wide receiver because, we know that Waddle can be an alpha, not at Hill level, but you've basically got 2 ones on this team. We've seen Wilson do very, very well when he got pressed into increased duty, and we've seen flashes out of Sherfield Williams too. So they're very well set up there. They've signed Teron Armstead to help address the line to go along with Connor Williams, who was, I think, signed, I don't remember if it was this year or last year. So they've addressed the line. At least the left side of it. You've got Mike Gesicki, who's all-world athletic, with Adam Shaheen behind him. So, I mean, Tua, is he good? Is he not? Is he average? He's going to get another year to prove it. And they went out and signed Raheem Mostert and Chase Edmonds to go along with Myles Gaskin. So you look at the offense on this Miami Dolphins team, and right side of the line, I think, is probably your biggest area that you could upgrade, but they're also set up really, really well.
So they went the Rams route.
They did.
They have no day one pick. They have one day two pick, round 3, pick 102. It's the end of day 2. I think it's one of the compensatory picks. Then they have round 4. They have a round 4 and 2 round 7. So they're kind of going. They saw what some of these teams in this conference did. Or, Denver trading for Wilson. Raiders are traded for Devontae Adams. Deshaun Watson, will get his chance to play in Cleveland. And you see what the AFC East looks like right now. Outside of Buffalo, it's still an open competition with New England for that number 2 spot. And Miami, went through their struggles last year, did also have a 7-game winning streak to kind of help bring them back into the fold last year. So this is nowhere near a bad team. And they're going to make some waves, just the strength in the AFC conference. The fact is that they're 9-10 teams deep, and 2 to 3 of these top teams aren't making the postseason. And Miami's are going to be one of those, fighting for that 6th and 7th seed effectively.
And the reason they're going to be fighting for that isn't because the offense is set up well. But when you look at the defense, there's a serious, lack of cornerstones there. They did resign Emmanuel Ogbah. He's a nice piece, but not all world. He's not what I would consider a difference maker. He's just a nice piece. You could say the same thing about Van Ginkel. We know Xavier Howard can be elite, but Byron Jones on the other side is okay. Aside from that, you could really use some help at safety. You could really use some cornerback depth. You could really use some pass rush. You should really use some improvements at linebacker. Andrew went from a defensive-minded coach to an offensive-minded head coach, and that's going to be the area that they have to try to address is the defensive side of the football. The offensive side is set up well, other than the right side of that line, but the defense is definitely just a more glaring need at all 3 levels to try to find something that hits.
I'm a little concerned that they, Tua hasn't really quite solidified himself as a true on starter, right? The Rams dealt with the same problem with Jared Goff. They made moves similar to this by trading away top picks to bring in cornerstone, all-pro, elite Hall of Fame type of defensive players to then match up with their already on their team established all-pro Hall of Fame defensive lineman and Aaron Donald. Miami doesn't have that defense to lean on to go through Tua's struggles. We don't know what Tua is as an elite quarter, if he's even going to be up into that conversation. Rams go out there and trade for Stafford last year. We saw what happened. It's kind of like one of those, it's an all-in move that can easily turn this franchise upside down if they don't get the results that I think they're expecting.
The problem with doing it
can blow terribly.
And that's the problem with doing it through free agency, too, is your cap maneuverability is significantly hampered. Now, you're able to do that because you got a quarterback on a rookie deal.
Yeah.
But your cap maneuverability is significantly hampered, and you don't have draft capital now. So you're basically sitting here looking at, okay, what do we do with the defense? Because if Tua does not step up in a way that can support Waddle, Hill, Wilson, if Mostert and Edmonds can't find the same success that they found elsewhere, then you're back to having a very expensive, slightly above average offense with, a defense that we know can be solid that doesn't really have elite pieces. We've seen Miami under Flores play better on defense, especially than the sum of their parts.
Yeah.
He's not there anymore. So, this is a team that on paper offensively looks very good, defensively needs help, and I don't know what type of firepower they have to improve the defense.
So as it stands right now, looking at the 23, cap situation, Miami is in the hole $4 million at the fourth least amount of cap space.
And that's
so they don't even have firepower. They don't even have firepower to start playing with. They're going to have to start freeing up cap space, and they're not going to have the moves that the Chargers had, that the Bengals have, where the Bears are going to be at next year, to where if their rookie quarterback, if their guy takes that next leap, they have all the money in the world to set him up with key free agent acquisitions, where Miami is going to have to lean heavier on this year's free agent class and lack of a draft class. So it's a copycat league, like we always say, right? Sometimes it's not about the player that changes everything, like Debo did. It's team with what the Rams did. So
well, and then in the division in the conference, can you keep up with Buffalo? And I look at that roster and say, no, you went all in.
right.
Well, Buffalo's in their window and at the top of their game. So not only did you go on in a way that gives you no flexibility, but you went all in when somebody with a much better hand is also all in.
Yeah, it's not as bad as it's what the Saints were and what Philly was and where Minnesota might be leading into, but it could turn out to be pretty
bad.
It could get very ugly very quickly.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of that's going to hinge on Tua.
Yep.
If Tua can make that offense perform it even what the pieces are, then they'll compete. But he's got to be able to do that.
Yep.
All right, looking at the Patriots. Wide receiver is lacking top-end talent, we'll say. If you added a wide receiver 1 here, you would look at Devontae Parker, Jacoby Myers, Nelson Aguilar, and Kendrick Bourne and say, okay, yeah, that's serviceable. For what the Patriots want to do, that's a serviceable group. You don't have an alpha there, though. So I would still consider top-end talent at that position to be a need, especially the way that the league's going. I love Jacoby Myers. I think he's a great player. He is not a 1. Devontae Parker has shown he can be a 1, but in one season. And then couldn't recapture it, couldn't reclaim it, and that's after multiple years of not breaking out. N'Keal Harry's a bust. Nelson Aguilar is a good complementary piece, but shouldn't serve as anything more than depth. So you're severely lacking top-end wide receiver talent here for starters.
Yeah, it's we briefly talked about them from a draft pick standpoint. They have all their picks minus their 7th round pick, and they have an extra 5th and they have an extra 5th and an extra 6th. They don't have their 5th round pick. They have 2 other ones. Either way, they don't have a lot of high-end picks. They have just 1 for each of the first 3 rounds, the original ones. As you mentioned, wide receiver depth or high top end wide receiver. It's lacking, especially in a division where Miami just traded for Tyreek Hill to pair alongside their great up and coming receiver in Jalen Waddle. They bring back James White. They kind of help give that game manager early Tom Brady feel to Mac Jones. Defense, they lost J.C. Jackson. There's a glaring hole at defensive back now. And JC was always one of the more disrespected defensive backs in the league for how great that he's played. Mm-hmm. It's New England feels like a team that's not going to, it's a good team that probably make the playoffs in the NFC or at least be, somewhat competitive. And it's going to be weird to see a non-injury riddled Patriots team just not be good enough to make the playoffs. I don't see how they're going to be a wild card team outside of playing above their means.
And we know that Belichick can get that out of them, but
yeah,
you don't have an offensive mind on this team. His son and Jared Mayo are the defensive coordinators, and Matt Patricia is apparently going to help with the offense, but I don't know what he can bring to that. And it's one of those things, Mac Jones is okay. Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson, I would argue, are a pretty good 1-2 punch.
Yeah.
Same with Hunter Henry and Johnny Smith, but are you going to play old school football? We're going to run the ball and we're going to play defense. And if you're going to play defense, I mean, okay, you've got Lawrence Guy and Matt Judon, but your best quarterback right now is Malcolm Butler. You know, and Devin McCourty. These are all Patriots guys that are here, but this is not. It feels like a 500 team. It feels like they're going to be the third best team in the division.
Yeah, it's this style of football that you're 30 years removed from this being fine, from this being acceptable. 20 years.
Right.
Now you have
it's a lot of good, not great.
Yeah, like the two best divisions in football are the AFC West and the AFC North. And at least, from a true talent standpoint, I know the NFC West can make some competition there, but this conference is fucking loaded, and the division's not going to be a breeze, right? They held their own up against Buffalo last year, but Buffalo improves, and they're just like their young gun quarterback is just getting more experience. It's just I don't think this Patriots team has enough firepower to get them there.
Even if
coaching, we know, yeah.
Even if they go at a top end wide receiver, I don't think they have enough firepower to get them there.
It's offense, right? We don't know what this offense is going to be. I expect the defense to play up to expectations, be a little better, just given what we've seen from them in the past. But I don't know if this offense is going to be able to get it done. It's not because they're bad. It's just because it's just too many other good teams.
It's just that solid's not good enough.
Yeah, this isn't the NFC, guys.
Yeah. They're going to be consistent, for sure. They'll be solid. It's not good enough.
Yeah.
Not in a conference that has the Bills, the Bengals, potentially the Ravens coming out of it, what Denver's done, now Kansas City and the Chargers.
I mean, and Kansas City might have the worst overall roster in their division, and they're still going to likely be a playoff team because of Mahomes.
Yep.
Yeah, the South is a joke right now, but they don't play in the South. They still have to go through, Buffalo and Miami, and if the Jets improve,
would they be better than the Colts? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Now with Matt Ryan, who brings a little more consistency to that team.
Yep. All right, moving on to the Jets. Looking at the wide receiver position right now, it's Elijah Moore, Corey Davis, Braxton Berrios. That's really okay. You would like to see them add something here. Berrios is fine out of the slot. We've seen him be productive. We saw Moore flash a lot of skill, even though he's kind of a non-traditional outside guy. And we know what Corey Davis is capable of being. So you could see an upgrade here. I don't hate this as a rookie landing spot, especially to push Berrios out of a starting role, because Moore can play outside with his speed and athleticism. He can play inside with his size, being smaller, but and be a real mismatch there. So I don't hate if they go out and upgrade the wide receiver. Even if you go top end and you go get one of these high-end wide receivers, force Corey Davis back into a 2 role, and then have Elijah Moore playing a slot and gadget type role, it's a good way to go if you're the Jets, I think. You could add weapons.
And they're in a good spot. 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks. They have 5 top 70 picks. The Jets are in a very good spot to make key improvements across the board. Right, you need to be able to give Wilson some chance to succeed by giving your young quarterback some better outside weapons. Right now, PFF has it as Davis and Mims as starting outside options, with Moore likely playing out of the slot. You had a guy like Drake London, which has been mocked to the Jets for months now,
and then you put him and Davis on the outside and Moore in the slot with Mims as a depth piece. That's very good.
And then you get that. I mean, I know you're a big fan of Michael Carter, and I really like Michael Carter, as a pass catching satellite back here.
Else.
You have 2 high 4th round picks.
Right.
2.
Rashad White. I mean, add some smash to your dash.
I think this is a spot where you see like a Damian Pierce go, like a Zamir White, like Brian Robinson, a guy that can clearly, especially a guy like Zamir White, who's used to playing with a pass catching back in James Cook. You can see, and the Jets don't have to give up a lot to get to that point. So they're going to make improvements across the line. Obviously, offensive line needs some help still. Defensive line, definitely.
But they've invested in the offensive line. I mean,
they absolutely have.
With Laken Tomlinson, George Fant, Connor McGovern, and then, back-to-back first-round picks with Becton and Vera Tucker. I mean, yeah, I think with the offensive line, you just kind of see how that comes together. You might add depth, but, you've got some depth there as well. Dan Feeney's a experienced veteran from the Chargers, and Greg Van Roten from Carolina. They've got some depth and some pieces on that O-line to maneuver with. And, so it's really getting someone in there that can complement Michael Carter, who had a very good rookie year, and potentially upgrading the wide receiver position. And, you can go spend some depth on O-line. Sure, give yourself some more options. But I think that as you look at that depth chart, on the line, you've definitely got enough pieces to put something that's a little bit better than serviceable together.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this could be, one of the better improved teams. Like, I don't think you and I would be shocked if the Jets leapfrog, the Jets finish as the third best team. New England could be the worst team from a record standpoint.
They could be. If Zach Wilson can, make even marginal strides from year one, and then they just go get better on defense. And I think that's where it's really gonna matter is go get better on defense. You bring in DJ Reed, that's a nice upgrade. You have CJ Mosley, that's a nice upgrade. Get some pass rush there and get some additional cornerback help. I mean, Bryce Hall is your 2. It's okay. Former Bear, but I mean, get some additional help in the secondary, get some additional pass rush, maybe add a back in the, that round 4 or 5 range that can complement Michael Carter. You don't have to go high upside because Carter's got enough upside. He's just got to be used very specifically. So you can get a one-trick pony and be fine there. As long as that one trick is I can work between the tackles. Carter plays bigger than he is between the tackles anyway, I would argue. And, I would, like I said, a lot of depth in this wide receiver class. Go add someone. Davis can be a 1 on a team that's not super pass first. So even if you don't spend high draft capital, upgrade over Braxton Berrios,
Yeah, I fully believe they're going wide receiver with one of these, one of the top 70 picks that they have, and they're gonna they absolutely, like, they're gonna do what they didn't do with Sam Darnold, and they're gonna go effectively all in with the right moves, hopefully. And well, we're gonna always talk about how good the conference is in the AFC, but the Jets could be one of the more improved teams. Unlike the Jaguars, where they have an easier path to the playoffs. But the Jets could still be a very much improved team.
Problem with the Jets and the Dolphins is they're in the wrong division, and the Jets and the Dolphins, I think, are going to be fighting for the second spot in this division.
Absolutely.
And it's not weird to think that they're better than, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, 2 of the AFC South teams, or, this is such a tough division.
I wouldn't say they're better than Cleveland, but
no,
I mean, we don't know how long Watson's going to be out for, so that could definitely change.
Such a freaking hard conference, though.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to watch on Sunday. It's going to be a lot of fantasy scoring.
And you just trade some of these teams to the NFC.
They get more balance.
Because holy crap, the AFC is fun right now.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, let's go look at the Ravens.
They got, they'll get everyone healthy, which is something that was unable to be said last year.
The wider,
just countless.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just countless. Besides the wide receivers, just countless losses across the board, especially on the O-line, especially on defense. And speaking of the O-line, that's where Baltimore is going to need to first start addressing to start getting some of that interior line fixed. Get yourself another tackle alongside Ronnie Stanley to help protect Lamar Jackson. And then you just go in and you improve your pass rush. You go and you improve your linebacking core. You're going to need improvement from Patrick Queen. Definitely. We saw some flashes from them last year, but just couldn't put it together consistently. You need to add some depth from the defensive backfield. I know that they just were hammered with injuries there, but Jimmy Smith is never, ever healthy. And you're starting to get some of the age out guys like Marcus Peters isn't getting any younger. Smith can never stay healthy. So you're going to have to get some improvement alongside, Marlon Humphrey for this Baltimore defense to get back, especially with what they're going to have to contest now with, Burrow in year 3 and then newly added Deshaun Watson. So, from a pick standpoint, they have an extra 3rd round pick. They have their main 3 picks, an extra 3rd round one. They have 5 4th round picks. We know Baltimore is infamous for making a lot of day 3 moves and just moving around the board, just completely adding depth and giving themselves the flexibility from a depth standpoint. There were rumors. There was a thing popped up on ESPN this morning that Baltimore it's not out of the realm of question that Baltimore may end up selecting a running back. At the end of day 2. They have an extra 3rd round pick and they have 5 4th round picks in a not a top heavy running back class, but there's some nice pieces.
Did you say they have 5 4th round picks?
They have 5 4th round picks. 5.
Okay, they're definitely going to spend one of those on a running back. I know that I'm not gonna. I'm gonna love it and I'm gonna hate it because you have just as good of a chance, given the historical health of this running back room, to see touches, and given how this offense runs, to see touches, and at the same time, it's super freaking crowded, and if things don't break your way, it's gonna go really badly.
I mean, this is a team just 2 years ago with was the number 1 seed in the AFC with a still very young Lamar Jackson and a very heavy running game. They kind of want to I believe they're going to want to get back to that Mark Ingram, J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards trio.
I don't think they ever wanted to get away from it. I think the problem is that all of them were freaking hurt last year.
Yeah, and while they're going to have to accept the fact that they're going to be throwing the football more, just you're going to have better offenses to deal with, and their defense just isn't as strong as it was in years past. But they still want to add some running back depth. They don't want to be caught with their pants down like with what we had from them last year. Obviously, just the amount of injuries they had is not common. But this is still a very heavy run focused team that can do a lot of damage with Lamar Jackson's skill set. Your favorite sleeper running back may end up here and may end up getting what Dobbins was his rookie season. And yet there's not a lot of J.K. Dobbins in this draft class.
No, there's not.
Can you imagine if Kenneth Walker went here? Can you just imagine Twitter imploding? He won't go. He's going to go too high.
Everything would break. Well, and the Ravens with those 4th rounders do have some ability to move up too. I mean,
they can do a lot of stuff there. Yeah, absolutely.
They have a good and young receiver core that just doesn't matter because they don't throw the football that much. But I look at their receiver core from, how I rated the last couple draft classes, right? 19, 20, 21, and they have a really what should be a really good receiver core if they threw the ball more.
We're going to need to see. I think Lamar is going to throw more than people think. I think Baltimore is just going to have to throw more than what people want to accept them to. But
yeah,
if Lamar does take the next step, and he showed flashes of it every year, he just can't put it together consistently. He has a true one in Bateman, and he has a great, deep threat that can be more than just a deep threat than Brown. And you get, you get your serviceable needs from Devin Duvernay and James Prochet, obviously Mark Andrews. This Ravens offense is not as bad as people think, and they're going to still shock people. Number 1 team in the AFC before Lamar Jackson went down for the rest of the year, so not that bad.
Yeah, I mean, they're not bad. They're not number 1 seed good. They're playoff good.
No, God, no.
And you kind of hit the nail with that too. They're going to add a lot of depth to defense with everything they have in that mid round, and they're gonna need to.
Yeah, this defense is going to be. It won't be bad like last year, but it's going to. When everyone's healthy, this isn't. This is a below average Ravens defense historically. Let's just say it that way.
Yeah, it is. So they're going to have to get better there. And the offense, I mean, this is one of the weirdest teams to project offensively, and it's going to continue to be. So,
Yep.
Hope no skill player you like lands here.
It's good. I'm waiting. I'm waiting for someone like Walker or White,
And
or
it will tank their draft capital instantly.
yeah, like a Brian Johnson, Zamir White lane here, and it's just you're gonna just see the community just deflate itself.
You feel like the Bengals are okay at the wide receiver position right now?
I feel like the Bengals could totally add no more wide receivers to this team and be just fine.
Not anything with significant draft capital. I mean, I said that in jest, right? The top three are really good, and the depth behind that is not. So they could add somebody late. I mean, right now your depth is the bad Mike Thomas, Stanley Morgan Jr., and Trent Taylor. So
they'll add somebody.
They could certainly afford to add somebody. It just doesn't
because
have to
Boyd
be
will be
higher.
gone next year. They'll likely add somebody higher than we are joking about, with Boyd more than likely gone after this season.
Well, and that's also true. We lauded them for this already, but they've completely addressed the line in free agency. They have Hayden Hurst, so they got a replacement for Uzama. I mean, Hurst is at least as good as Uzama. They're not going to be tight end heavy, so don't really care about that. Running back wise, Mixon not the model of health. You could absolutely upgrade over Samaje Perine, but again, that's going to be a depth pick.
I don't know. Zach Taylor really likes him. He likes him so much, he'll play him in the most important play in Bengals history,
Especially on third downs.
and run up the middle against the greatest interior lineman we may have ever seen.
Yep.
Oh God, yeah. Just
Hey, Elijah
Zach
Holyfield's
Taylor.
still in the league.
Is he on this team?
Yeah.
Oh my God, good for him.
And Puka Williams. Remember Puka Williams?
Mr. One like 154.
Yeah, a
He's
little
so
guy.
small.
Little guy.
Yeah, since he will likely add a backup.
They're going to have to
behind
add a
Mixon.
backup.
Yeah.
Looking at the defense, Sam Hubbard's really good. Trey Hendrickson's pretty good. So are B.J. Hill and DJ Reader. I mean, you're pretty okay on the front four. You could certainly upgrade your line. You could probably upgrade your secondary over Eli Apple and Chidobe Awuzie. So, quarterback is probably their most glaring need, because, I mean, you add a stud rookie to Awuzie and Apple, all of a sudden that cornerback core looks a lot better. Von Bell and Jesse Bates, good safeties, and then get yourself a linebacker. I mean, defense, cornerback and linebacker. Then just add in some depth pieces.
They have all their draft picks in an extra seventh. They have, 3 in the top 100, obviously, picking from the Super Bowl runner-up position. Obviously, cornerbacks, there's a lot of depth there. It's one of the better positions. It's one of the better one of the better positions in this draft class. So, Bengals address their most glaring hole, like we talked about at the O-line, and it's going to be just adding in, pieces to fill up this roster. Right, this is where teams want to be. They want to, they want to have their star quarterback on a rookie deal. They want to have a lot of key pieces figured out, and then start adding depth that you can keep building and keep rotating in and out. They want to have that New England model where they can have their replacement already on the roster and experience ready to go. Like, don't be surprised if they draft another sleeper running back here, late, maybe early day 3. They'll need a Tyler Boyd replacement. They'll find a slot receiver in that. And then, as you said, they're going to just add those key pieces at the top of their, their draft picks with, defensive back and some linebackers potentially.
Yeah. Then you have punter too. Kevin Huber's still a free agent. Just
Hopefully they don't take one high. Then hopefully, they made all these great moves, but we're taking a punter in the second round. Fuck you.
Rick Pearson worked it out.
That's true.
The Browns.
Wow.
Jakeem Grant right now listed as their slot wide receiver over a guy like Anthony Schwartz. Look, wide receiver, Mark Cooper, DPJ, that's okay, but you can do better.
Yeah, they'll add some pieces.
They're gonna need
they don't have a first round pick this year, but they have 3 top 100s and they only have 6 draft picks total.
Yeah.
So I mean, obviously, when you trade the entire trade of your move for Watson is draft picks, obviously you're going to lose. They're going to have a lot of draft picks. So,
and obviously they're set at running back. They're set along the offensive line with some pretty good depth. They got Chase Winovich in. They're, Jock, draft pick from last year.
Yep.
Showed out pretty well. Denzel Ward, still a good cornerback. Safety-wise, I mean, Craig Newsome, first-round pick from last year. They're fine defensively. They're fine in a lot of areas around the offense, which is why the Watson trade made sense. Mayfield's still on the roster, even if Watson's suspended. It's really wide receiver. It's their most glaring need. It's wide receiver, and then go add yourself some defensive depth because you're really void at pass rush behind Myles Garrett and Chase Winovich. And you can never have too many cornerbacks. That's
yeah. Yep. I mean, that's it.
J.C. Treader, still a free agent, by the way. As is Jarvis Landry. Just looking at someone who's still out there as we go through this, too. J.C. Treader, Jarvis Landry, Jadeveon Clowney, Ronnie Harrison, Tack McKinley. I mean, they could just re-sign some of their free agents and immediately solve some of those needs.
Yeah, right? I know.
Holy cow. Okay. Pittsburgh. So they obviously got Mitch Trubisky. With Mason Rudolph and Dwayne Haskins behind them. That's an okay QB room. I still think everybody expects them to add a quarterback of the future, though. The signing of Trubisky tells you that they don't believe in it. It's Rudolph or that it's Haskins. I firmly expect them to go out and get a quarterback, as most people do.
They don't really have, from a pick standpoint, they really don't have much to get them there outside of, trading, future capital to make a move. I think a lot of people expect one of Pittsburgh, New Orleans to kind of make that move up, depending on how the board's falling.
But they also don't have to this year.
Yeah, they absolutely their best bet, like the Saints do, is your best bet to sit and wait.
Just wait.
Just wait and see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Pittsburgh's not making the playoffs. We're gonna get probably Tomlin's first losing record as a head coach. And it won't be because that they're void of talent. They don't have the right position ready at quarterback. Everywhere else is fine for the most part, outside of
offensive
some linebacker help
bad.
And some need some improvement along the offensive line. Just really along the trenches. They can use some help, linebackers in their secondary. Just some key pieces to fill through, and we'll see what they do. This is a team I wouldn't be shocked if they don't go quarterback, even though many expected them to.
Secondary needs some help. Linebacker's fine. Front seven's fine. Secondary is in desperate need of help. No Joe Hayden. He's a free agent. So,
yeah.
Fitzpatrick's good, but beyond that, you're real void back there. So, it's going to be the secondary, and then you just kind of see how these pieces perform together. And I don't know. They're in a weird position because in the NFC, it's easily a playoff team, I think. Maybe. They could be. They'd be on the fringe. In the AFC, it's just like not a chance.
Yeah. They'd be contending for a playoff spot. Probably. Depending on the division they play in. You put them in the NFC South, they can probably finish behind Tampa Bay. You put them in the NFC West, though.
Yeah.
Probably number 4. Probably bottom of the barrel.
Yep. Not much else to go into there. I mean, everybody could use some wide receiver depth, but Claypool and Johnson are fine.
They did lose Juju and James Washington, so don't be surprised. Again, they don't have a whole lot of picks. They just have 3 day 3 picks right now. 1 4th and 2 7th. That's all they got. No 5th, no 6th.
Beer review.
How's your past the Best By date barley wine?
I can see why it's there because you can definitely tell some of the fruits that you would pick off from the wine. There's not much there. It's still very much drinks like a barley wine with the heavy toffee flavor, caramel flavor. You get a little bit of the subtle richness from the whiskey barrels. Again, this is Deep Flux. This is from Boulevard Brewing. This is in collaboration with Three Floyds. Again, this was something that was done last year at some point, probably done in 2020, just given the aging of the barrel. Best By date, as a joke wise, was supposed to be October of 2021. Again, as Hopper alluded to at the beginning of the show, it's likely for the wine cast that it's also aged in. So again, just this rich and toffee caramel flavors. It doesn't drink like 14.2%. Or 14.3, but you can definitely you definitely know that it's there. So it's one, if you find it in the wild, don't be afraid to get it. If I remember correctly, it's not the cheapest beer in the world. You know, when you're tethered to Three Floyds, it's not going to be cheap. So, but the quality is very good. I would have liked to try it when it was actually, quote unquote fresh. I probably should have paid more attention to that, but for the most part, it's a very solid, a pale barley wine ale.
It happens. All right. As a reminder, I had a Maybach from Moore Brewing Company. And first off, the idea of Maybach is to be crushable, and they nailed it even at 6.2%. This is a super crushable beer. Been sitting on the last 2 drinks of the 16-ounce can since we finished the AFC East. So, obviously got through that pretty quick. Hops give it a nice kind of floral note to it, maybe slightly fruity, but not overly. Just sort of a nice backbound, lightly bitter. Definitely get a lot of the, not overly sweet, but bready malt notes that are very traditional of British and German and European style beers. So a lot of bready, crackery type malt notes to it. Not a ton of sweet malt notes. Overall, from what I understand of Maybach to be, they absolutely nailed it. It's an incredible beer. So good job to them. Finishes short, crisp. We already talked about the clarity and how fantastic that was. So, on to the Houston Texans, a team not nearly as good as that beer. Everything. Can we just say everything and move on?
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Okay. Yeah, Houston needs everything. We're not even going to spend the time breaking that down because they need damn near everything.
They got a lot of draft picks.
And
to help with that.
That's good because they need
absolutely
a lot of
do.
picks. The Colts. Okay. T.Y. Hilton is not officially re-signed, apparently. Still a free agent.
I don't think he will. I think they're going to be fine rolling in with
Campbell, Pittman, and Doolin. I think with Campbell's injury history and QT's injury history, they're going to have to draft wide receivers. They're going to have to pick some up someplace because, well, I love Michael Pittman, right? Your depth is Paris Campbell and Ashton Doolin right now. Sorry, your other 2 starters are Paris Campbell, who hasn't been able to stay healthy yet, even though we still very much believe in the upside. Ashton Doolin, who's hyper-athletic college free agent that's maybe flashed a little bit, and then nothing behind them. You can't rely on those 2 to give you a reliable wide receiver 2. One of them might, but you can't bet on might here either for a team that just paid for Matt Ryan that knows that they can be competitive in this division. I don't think that you can just rely on that wide receiver core the way that it is.
Yeah, I think they would be a great spot for a guy like Jarvis Landry. They can really solidify that veteran leadership in a very young wide receiver room. especially with the loss of T.Y. Hilton. They don't have a first-round pick. It was lost in the Carson Wentz trade from last year. They moved off of one of their third-round picks and got Matt Ryan. They only have 2 day 2 picks. They have some, third round or some day 3 picks, but they're going to have to. This is a very important draft for them. Very wide open NFC or very wide open AFC South division that they're going to need to capitalize on. So they're going to need to get production from their round 2 and round 3 pick. They're going to need some of these guys to make some big strides forward, especially from the wide receiver spot, because Pittman's going to see a lot of double coverage, a lot of shaded coverage. You're going to need to get production from Doolin. You're going to need to hopefully get production from Campbell. And I don't know if they're going to go wide receiver with their first 2 picks. They may feel like that they can wait. I expect them to trade down or try to trade down and try to gather up some more picks so they can have more of a chance to try to hit on some of these depth pieces and maybe get a starter from a day 3 pick. So I don't know whether they're going to start. I'm not sure whether they're going to go with these 2 picks, but I'm pretty sure they're going to do whatever they can to trade back to try to gather up some more, because they can't just go all in with what they have on offense.
No, they can't. Even on the line, we know that Ryan Kelly and Quentin Nelson are all world, but you look at what's around them, and with Matt Ryan not being mobile, you could stand to improve there. You're fine at the running back position, obviously. But then you look on defense and, okay, you got Yannick Ngakoue. Good pass rusher. Kwity Paye, first-round pick last year, fine. Taquan Lewis, you invested in that. Darius Leonard, Bobby Okereke, you've invested in the linebacker core. You need help really at quarterback too. So it's a team that needs secondary help. It's a team that needs maybe another veteran proven pass rusher. But they need secondary help, and they could definitely use some incremental improvements at wide receiver and on the offensive line. They'll be in playoff contention. I don't know that they're a true Super Bowl contender the way they set up. I don't know that, given their draft capitals, there's anything that they could do to get there either. They're one shot with the Titans for the number 4 seed. Like Tennessee should have never been a 1 seed last year. They fell into some lucky, into a lucky situation, won a couple crucial games, and beat a struggling Chiefs team during their bad stretch midseason. So I think the Colts, their best bet is to hopefully beat out the Titans for the AFC with South crown. There's no way we're going to playoff. There's no way we're getting a wild card team from this division. So yeah, it's
going to be tough. You're going to see some, we're going to see some bad play, I think, at times, but definitely a 1A, 1B with the Titans for the best team in the spot, and don't sleep on Jacksonville too, right? To make those, to make a positive stride and maybe even push to win, to win this division. I mean, they have what was arguably the best prospect at quarterback in a long time. So,
yeah. Jacksonville.
That team.
They've improved.
They have
improved. Christian Kirk and Zay Jones are both good depth adds. You can find a way to use Laviska Shenault with Doug Peterson and add somebody here, add a true one, because I don't think Chenault's a true one. And we know that Zay Jones and Christian Kirk aren't. But you've got your depth pieces in place. You just really need that high end. You need Trevor Lawrence now that he's got some weapons to take strides to. You've added Evan Ingram to Dan Arnold. Tight ends are really his out. So you don't have the excuse if you're Trevor Lawrence if I don't have weapons this year. Because
and you get back ETN, too.
Yeah. You add ETN with James Robinson. You bring in Evan Ingram to pair him with Dan Arnold. And then you sign Christian Kirk and Zay Jones, who are both serviceable NFL players without being elite. Even if they don't do anything else, Trevor Lawrence has no excuse to not show strides. He may not be up to his potential this year, especially if they don't get him a top-end one. but there's no excuse for him to not show strides this season.
Absolutely. And they have 4 day 1 and day 2 picks. They have 4 6th round picks. They have 8 day 3 in total. I mean, you have your depth pieces in your day 3. You have enough firepower to move around day 3 to take the guys that you like. You have 4 top 70 picks. You have, pick 1, obviously, and you have pick 33. You have, 2 really key spots for them they can move. We're seeing Aiden Hutchinson as the primary add to this. He's been the most mocked player here. We see some of, I think, the offensive tackle from Alabama being put here. So Jacksonville is going to add in a very, very good key player, whether it be on the defensive line or on the offensive line. And even with their massive additions to wide receiver in this draft or in this free agent class, do not be surprised if they use one of their 2 third round picks.
Yeah.
To potentially add another outside option. I love what Chanel could be with a more up tempo guy like Doug Peterson calling plays. Zay Jones should not be on the field as a starter at all.
Quit Chanel yet either.
This team does not have a number 1. I will not quit Chanel, but I probably will when he doesn't flash again because it's hard to predict
this
that
team doesn't
after
have a
2 busts.
1. They have a 2, a 3, and a 4.
They don't even have. I could argue they don't even have a 2. Maybe a 2B and Marvin Jones.
I would say Christian Kirk is good enough.
Kurt, I'm sorry, with Kurt. With Kurt, they have a 2. They have a bunch of 3s and 4s.
Yeah.
Kurt paid as a 1
is stupid. But
it was him. He's the reason why the wide receiver market reset. It's his fucking contract.
But Kirk is a 2, and so you add somebody there. You add some offensive line depth. At least give yourself some pieces to position here, right? I mean, Cam Robinson, you got him franchise tagged if he plays. You signed Brandon Scherf out of Washington. Jawan Taylor was a second-round pick 2 years ago. You can retool that a little bit and give yourself some depth there. And then, I mean, you really got to invest in the defense to take some of that pressure off of the offense to do everything. You did some last year with Chason, Tyson Campbell. You still got Josh Allen there from a couple of years ago, the other Josh Allen who had some big games. But you can really help yourself by just adding pieces across this roster. And it doesn't all have to be top-end talent. You can add guys in the second, third round, move around, trade some out for future draft capital. You're in a rebuild, and your roster has taken strides from year 1 of that rebuild to now year 2 of that rebuild. You survived Urban Meyer without being in the worst possible situation. So, it's on Jacksonville to just take that next step. You're not looking for him to make strides to be a playoff team this year. You're just looking for him to draft smart, add pieces where they need to add pieces, weapons and protection for Lawrence, and start to build that defense back. And, they're going to be in pretty good shape nearing the end of Lawrence's rookie deal.
And they're in a great spot. I mean, with Tennessee and with the Colts, they're not great long-term teams. They don't really have a great long-term plan. Tennessee's going to have to eventually lean off of Henry. Tannehill is a journeyman plus. He can get it done, but he's not a franchise QB by any means. And Jacksonville has what they need and the key pieces in place. And they could easily be the division favorites as early as next year. I think they're going to be a competitive team for the majority of this upcoming season. Then I fully expect Lawrence to take those strides. Right? I fully expect the 2021 QB class to actually show up this year as opposed to last year.
Me too. All right, looking at the Titans. Oof.
If this wasn't a bad division, right? Oof.
Yeah, they haven't improved or gotten really worse since last year. I mean, you swapped out a old as balls Julio Jones for Robert Woods coming off of an ACL tear. Westbrook Ikeen's still the 3, AJ Brown's still the 1. So could you use wide receiver depth? Yeah. Are they going to use wide receiver depth? No. So you just hope it's somebody you don't like. On Offensive line help, absolutely necessary. Tight
Absolutely.
end, kind of meh. Ryan Tannehill's locked up. Derrick Henry, fine. Get him a backup. Just cuff him with something.
Yeah, they have no second round pick. Just 2 day 1, day 2 picks with their first and third round. No 7th round picks, but 2 4s and 2 6. So they can do some moves in day 3. Again, a team that's likely going to trade down from pick 1 and try to get maybe a second and another third added just to give themselves a little more breathing room and start to add to the depth of this roster. If Derrick Henry is even half the back that he's been coming back from his injury, they'll be fine from the offensive end. Obviously, improvements on the offensive line, but I think this is more geared towards a run-focused team.
The run-focused team, you need defense too, and while the
you
defense
absolutely need
better
defense
than they should have the last several years. I look at this defensive depth chart, and there's just nothing there that inspires.
Besides the safeties, yeah, there's not much
confidence. Yeah, outside of Byard and Hooker.
Yeah, I mean, it's thankfully they play in the worst division in the AFC conference. They don't, and the Colts really aren't in the greatest spot to compete either. So they should still be the favorites, probably. Whatever Vegas comes out with their team wins, maybe look at it and maybe lean on the under bet.
If Jacksonville drafts well, could they sneakily win this division?
Yeah, I absolutely think that Doug Peterson, who got a MVP performance from Carson Wentz, he can get the same from Lawrence, and really, their team isn't as like from an offensive skill point. I think they have a better offensive playmakers than what Philly had. They don't have a Deshaun Jackson field stretcher per se, but I mean they had old man Alshon Jeffrey. They didn't really have a running game there. They had, was it Jay Ajayi for a large portion of that?
Yeah.
After he broke out and he gets to, fuck with ETN and James Robinson, defense obviously needs to be vastly improved, but they have a lot of picks. And you have a Titans team that doesn't have a lot of picks. Same with the Colts. They're missing key high picks that they're trying to get starters from. They're trying to actually get production from. And it's going to be an ugly crapshoot. It's going to be an ugly struggle for the number 1 spot. And Jacksonville could easily be in competition for that spot for the majority of the season. Maybe they don't get it because they're still very young and very inexperienced, especially in the off, especially on both sides of the ball. Yeah. That not this year, but I think next year, easy favorites for next year, I think.
Mm-hmm. All right, last division. The the Broncos, the Denver Broncos.
I mean, they made some big moves.
They did.
They did.
Melvin Gordon's still a free agent. Bryce Callahan's still a free agent. Kareem Jackson's still a free agent. I didn't know Kareem Jackson was a free agent. He's still a free agent.
Neither.
I mean,
God, they got a lot of picks still. Holy shit.
They do. There's still some good players floating around out here, too, I've noticed. Anyway, looking at their offense, look, we know that the wide receiver core is stacked right now. It's locked up at the top 3. It's Judy, Tim Patrick, Cortland Sutton. They've got Russell Wilson in the trade, who absolutely can't unlock all 3 of them. You got KJ Hamler behind that. This is not a team that needs to take advantage of this wide receiver depth.
And they still could.
Late, but...
Good. Late, obviously, yeah. And they have no first-round pick, obviously, but they still have 3 day 2 picks. They have multiple 4ths and multiple 7s. Yeah. So there's still a lot of room for depth adding.
They have a really good offensive line. Looking across it with Dalton Reisner, Garrett Bowles, 2 homegrown guys, and Lloyd Cushenberry. And then they sound Glasgow, and you get Billy Turner from Green Bay, or had last year. So you still have a good offensive line here, with some depth. So tight end depth, this is a team that had a lot of it. Alberto has not been a model of help, so I would still like to see them add something else at tight end over like Eric Tomlinson. But if I'm looking at your offense, and the most I can say is Oh, yeah, you could maybe use a backup running back, and assuming you don't re-sign Melvin Gordon, you could really use a backup running back and some tight end depth. You're doing pretty good.
Yeah, I am fully on board with them bringing back Melvin Gordon. I think they will. I think at this point Gordon realizes he doesn't have the market that he thought he was going to get, and I think Denver would welcome back with wide open arms and then compete for the top of this division. Still, I mean, I don't think they'll get it, but they're easily a wild card team.
Yeah.
And you can see a lot of firepower from this offense if things click early on. This is a team that if
they get into the playoffs could probably hang with anybody if things click from an offensive perspective.
It's still a good defense, even though they weren't able to get Von Miller to come back. This is still a good defense.
Yeah, with Josie Jewell, Bradley Chubb, Patrick Surtain, and Ronald Darby and Justin Williams, you still have a lot of pieces here, and I think this is where the draft capital should mostly go, is get yourself a couple more pass rushers, build up that secondary, invest the draft capital on defense because you invested, in the Wilson pick, and you invested in locking up those wide receivers on offense. You built the offensive line, so just go try to tool up your defense a little bit. You don't need anything insane, which is probably good because of the Russell Wilson trade. So
I mean, this is a good roster. We all knew that. We all knew Denver was a quarterback away to get him over that hump, and they obviously addressed that as well as any team did with their weaknesses. And now it's just taking the picks. They still have a lot of picks. They're going to add a lot of good special team stuff. This is going to be a very, very good team next year.
It is. The AFC is going to be fun. Have we said that yet?
I think the phrase of the show this offseason is how good the AFC conference is.
Yeah.
A lot of improvements.
So Kansas City, we do expect them to spend day one capital on a wide receiver. Yeah.
That's the hope.
Or at least
I mean they have two back and first round picks. They have 2 second round picks. They have 2 third round picks. They don't have to go wide receiver in the first round. They have pick 50 and pick 62 and a stacked wide receiver from a depth standpoint. Maybe the top end's isn't as strong as we thought it was. A lot of depth though.
I'm all on board with Jameson Williams landing here because when I watched him, my first thought was, and look, a lot of people overuse Tyreek Hill comparisons. I don't think I've used a Tyreek Hill comparison at all in the 5 years we've been doing this. I watched Williams and my first thought was Tyreek Hill. Just the after the catch ability, the way that he pulled away from defenders, the way he was able to get behind the defense was something that I didn't just make the lazy comparison of he's a fast guy, it's Tyreek Hill. I actually legitimately thought that watching film, but also you don't need him healthy to start the season. You don't have to rush him back from that on a team where, look up and down this roster, right? We've had Miguel on a lot of years.
Yeah.
Justin Watson and Darius Fountain are both on this roster. Josh Gordon is on this roster. Juju, who's a former wide receiver 1 in his own right, and Marquez Valdes-Scantling, who was trending towards a breakout year before he got hurt, are on this roster, as well as Mecole Hardman, who we've seen flash some things. You pair that with Travis Kelce and an elite quarterback, you don't need that wide receiver to be a stud on day one or healthy on day one, for that matter. If they wait till the third round, this could be a landing spot for Mechie, too. And you just look at it up and down, you're like, there might not be the top-end talent, but with Patrick Mahomes being what he is, and when I see Juju and Mecole Hardman, and I see these highly athletic lottery picks and Josh Gordon and Darius Fountain and Justin Watson to go along with, another 2 guys, and a guy that's been NFL successful and a guy with some upside who maybe had some question marks coming in here. Yeah. I can get on board with that. I can get behind that.
I fully expect Kansas City to go defensive side of the ball with their first 2 first-round picks.
And they should.
They absolutely should shore up secondary, shore up the need pass rush. No matter how good your pass rush, how good you think it is, within that conference, you want to get it as close to it as to elite as you can. they'll add receivers. It may not be the top of it, but guys are gonna slip. One of these guys is gonna fall that we don't think. So I want to see an elite outside, not elite, but an actual outside X in this offense. Yeah. Not fucking banged up Sammy Watkins. Like, I want to actually see. My dream is a go George Pickens in round 2. To get yourself an athletic outside option that was a former 5-star recruit, that was one of the best Devy receiver, was supposed to be one of the best 23 receivers before injury.
That's dealt with injuries, right?
Yeah, I want to see an actual outside clasher. Drake London would be great, but he's not going to be available.
He's not going to be available if you want him to go.
Burks maybe, but Burks is still raw.
And Burks, though, the thing with Burks even being raw is that you don't need him to be your reliable guy. You have Travis Kelce and Juju Smith-Schuster for that. You don't need him to be your field stretcher with Mecole Hardman and Marquez Valdez-Scantling there. You need a gadget guy to replace the gadgety shit that Tyreek Hill did, and that is the one thing Treylon Burks was better at than anybody else in this class, is doing the gadgety Debo Samuel type
slipping, shit. And they have the capital to move up and down the board as they see fit. Look, Kansas City's roster it's the weakest of the 4 teams in the AFC.
It's still not weak,
but they have it's still not weak. They have so many draft picks, high-end draft picks to make move. I mean, they have 6 in they have 5 in the top 100, and they have one of their third-round picks. It's at the 104th, one of their compensatory picks.
Think about it this way: with that amount of picks through the 3rd round, what if they do decide to go even in the 4th
They may trade for Metcalf. They've been rumored to Metcalf for the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
That's not where I was going. I was going to say,
I know.
What if in the 4th round they decide to spend some capital and maybe bring something in to complement Hilaire? What if they go get somebody that could show you some of the flashes that Jerick McKinnon showed during the playoff run?
You know who was at Rachaad White's pro day?
Kansas City.
Eric
Bieniemy.
Big fan.
Yeah.
Let's do this. Rachaad White to Kansas City.
You put him there, even as just another option with Hilaire.
Boner alerts.
And it all of a sudden looks good. Maybe the answer isn't you go add a top-end wide receiver talent. Maybe the answer is you add a running back and give yourself a different dimension if the passing game isn't working. But
we all want to see. I mean, this is the running back. Well, running back is the Buffalo, is wide receiver to Kansas City. Mm-hmm. Whoever lands here, especially if it's day 1 or high day 2, is going to get a massive bump for fantasy, and rightfully so. I would love to see Jameson Williams here. I want more of an outside. I don't want a Tyreek Hill replacement. I want an actual X. And you're right. Jameson Williams is Tyreek Hill more polished.
He is.
That's what if he can get back to what he was from a burst standpoint after his ACL tear.
There's a reason that Jameson Williams is in the tier of, is he going to be a true X? Is he going to be a true elite outsider? Is he going to end up at the NFL level in more of a field stretcher role? Well, Kansas City showed they can use that as an elite wide receiver, but most offenses, that's not how you project guys. So, yeah, you get some.
I would still be pumped if that pick is there. Williams is. I'll be excited. Regardless of who lands here, it's going to be exciting.
And we've seen him want to go speed, but you're absolutely right about your call on defense. The defense is lacking. They desperately need. They have Chris Jones and Frank Clark, but you desperately need to get some rotational pass rush pieces in here to go with those two. You desperately. I mean, actually, the linebacking core is okay, but you could definitely shore up that linebacking core a bit. You definitely need some cornerback help, because right now you're going to be in shootouts. I mean, your cornerbacks are Rashad Fenton, DeAndre Baker, and L'Jarius Sneed. So
Sneed's been fine. Sneed's been one of their long really good picks from the last couple of drafts. But you have a lot of players to compete with just in your own division, and that's not even talking about outside of your division that you're gonna have to compete with in the playoffs.
Yep. So, and that's how you're gonna do it too, because especially in this division, it's very offensive heavy.
if I'm a Chiefs fan, I would actually be kind of upset if they go offense in the first 2 picks.
Best defense wins this division.
You want to. You just you need guys to make plays. There's this offense as it is right now is good enough to make plays when they need to make plays. But can the defense stop somebody? Yeah. Buffalo exposed them. The Bengals exposed them twice. And now you just added Devontae Adams to this division as well.
Yeah, and speaking of Devontae Adams, looking at the Raiders, with Devontae Adams, Ryan Edwards, Hunter Renfrow, their starting 3 looks pretty good, especially when you factor Darren Waller in with that.
This Raiders have a great fucking team. They just didn't have Derek Carr.
Right. Derek Carr doesn't
That's really it.
Yeah. They're with Kenyon Drake, who will be back. Josh Jacobs. You've got decent running back depth. You've got Foster Moreau, who can be a red zone option. I mean, you look, Colton Miller. I look at this and I just say, shore up the interior offensive line a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you can shore up the interior offensive line, you're also going to unlock another level of Josh Jacobs. So there's that. Mm-hmm. So shore that up some, and then you're just looking depth on the offense, and then you're all defensive side of the football. And they've got some good pieces there too, but
they need help. 5 draft picks, all they have. They moved their first 2 picks to Green Bay to get Adams. They went the Rams route again. They went all in with Derek Carr. They have one pick in the 3rd round. They have 4 day 3 picks. A team that is, absolutely fucking desperate to get production from these 5 lone picks. Yeah. Obviously, you'll see moves on day 3 to get stuff added, but this team is not only does Derek Carr need to take a next step forward.
We've been saying that for years.
Yeah, you still need this defense to still make plays. Max Crosby's fantastic pass rusher. Locked him up, one of the best in the league. And that's going to go great against, Justin Herbert, Russell Wilson, and Patrick Mahomes. You still have weaknesses in the secondary. You still have weaknesses at linebacker. You're going to, you have some serviceable pieces, but the defense needs to be the focus. 5 picks, there's only one of them being in the first 3 rounds. It's not going to get it done, though. This team needs to play above and beyond. Its offense is going to have to take a step forward to get them there. Because like you said, it's going to be a lot of shootouts. And you're not going to be saved by a Brandon Staley or, by a Staley, potential mishap on 4th down that gets you into the playoffs. That's not going to happen this year.
Right.
Again, the theme of the offseason, the AFC conference is too fucking good for that to happen. So I love the Raiders roster. Still as a whole, though, it's a bit stronger than Kansas City's as a full-on piece. But
yeah, Mahomes changes that though.
Mahomes literally changes that entire conversation
because
Derek Carr just isn't there.
Way more draft capital.
Yeah, they have almost easily double the picks of what the Raiders have.
Yeah,
especially at the top end of the draft, where it's going to be a lot easier to find replacement production. You're not going to replace Tyreek Hill, but you can definitely find replaceable production for the defense. And for the Raiders, it's going to be like the move for Adams set this team back.
You don't need to replace Tyreek Hill. You just need the compilation of Valdez-Scantling, Juju Smith-Schuster, and whoever they draft to replace Tyreek.
I mean, let's not forget, 2019 they drafted Mecole Hardman because they thought they were going to lose Tyreek Hill for at least a year. Like, Mecole Hardman has been serviceable. Is he going to be good? No. But is he fine in spots? Absolutely.
And, yeah, so if you draft somebody, I mean, look, you didn't have anybody else really relevant in that wide receiver core. So can the compilation of the guys that they run out there replace Tyreek Hill? And I think yes. So
I think what you'll get is you're right. I think Mecole can be your gadget guy. And MVS can be the deep threat.
And Juju,
well, you have Juju locking up.
Going to give you a level of reliability you didn't have in the
especially in that intermediate spot with Travis Kelce.
Yep. Chargers, looking up and down their roster, it's actually a thing that I'm like, yeah, they need to add to keep pace here. I mean,
They're so good. They're Buffalo too.
Very mixed feelings on Mike Williams here because he disappears.
I like
every
the
year.
move because of he brings familiarity to the offense, and he's got chemistry with.
He also
Herbert.
does a disappearing act every season. So
I'm not saying that I absolutely love the deal too. I understand why they made the deal though, and I still think they're going to go receiver at the top with one of their first few picks.
And I think
absolutely.
I think they need to go receiver because I like Williams better as a 3. I like Allen. I love Allen out of the slot. You don't have to go get a 1. You have Keenan Allen. You don't have to go get an outside threat. What I would like to see them go get is one of these field stretchers that can take the top off the defense because that's what they're missing. Mike Williams is a contested catch guy.
Just wait till they add Alex Pierce to this and like.
Oh yeah, Pierce would be
late 3, round 4. They're going to add Pierce
for that.
You just add some super hyper athletic guy. But I don't get me wrong though. If Drake London slips here, even adding a guy to because you have to start thinking life beyond Keenan Allen too. Even though I love his skill set beyond that, but they could add Garrett Wilson.
I just look at this and I don't see anybody that's taking the top off of this defense, and that's where I have a problem.
I mean, Palmer kind of filled that spot in spurts, and Herbert is such a talented thrower, especially deep, that you just need someone that can at least stack his DB. You don't need a pure burner.
Well, that's what you have.
You would like to get one.
You'd like to get one. So if you're
you would like to get one, but you don't need.
If you're going to add to this receiver core, though, looking at the fit, I think that's what you need. I don't think,
and you can spend that in day 3. They have 4 7-round picks, 2 6. And a 4th and a 5th. They can find a field stretcher at some point in day 3.
5th round and go grab a field stretcher to go with your contested ball guy and Mike Williams, who can also kind of work deep. And you're over the middle with Keenan Allen. You added Gerald Everett here. You still got Eckler, who, by the way, I would like to see them add somebody else in the running game as well because Justin Jackson is gone. Did he sign?
No, he's there. He's the primary backup.
He's a free agent still.
Is he still a free agent?
Yeah.
Well, they have no 2nd round. They have a late 3rd. I mean, you'd like to see them added.
It doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be in the draft. It can be somebody that's still a free agent that can bring Jackson back. It's just
bring Melvin Gordon back. Bring him home.
Yeah. It's just I don't want Eckler's backup since he's good for a soft tissue issue a year. I don't want Eckler's backup to be Josh Kelly.
No.
That's where I'm at with it.
They can find something.
Yeah.
They'll get a thumper guy like a Jerome Ford, baby.
Yeah. That's certainly doable. And then, Asante Samuel Jr., Derwin James, you have pieces to build around there. You could use secondary. Nope, they added J.C. Jackson too. You're good in the secondary.
Yeah.
And you've got Kenneth Murray, who's a very good linebacker. You added Khalil Mack to the pass rush to go along with Joey Bosa. You need some depth on defense, but right now, this might be the defense with the highest ceiling in the conference.
Yeah, and there's been rumors floating around. We talked about it in our group chat today, in the league chat, that the Chargers are looking to move up to where Minnesota is. From a Vikings fan, I would absolutely love that because I want to get more. I want them to get more picks. From the Chargers, adding just more talent in to kind of fill up, maybe shore up some of the holes from a starting standpoint. Look, you can never have enough pass rushers.
No, you can't.
And you can still add to the secondary, even with J.C. Jackson and Derwin James. James also isn't a model of health. Neither is Bosa. Max older.
Yeah.
I would not be shocked if they went out there and they got one of these sliding edge rushers, because again, this is still Mahomes and Wilson are now in this division combined with what they have to face in the conference. So,
which is why you need an edge rusher, and that's why you need cornerback depth, even with J.C. Jackson and Asante Samuel Jr. there.
Yeah, this is a very, very good defense. Like what the Bengals did on their old line, the Chargers went out and addressed the needs that they needed and got JC for a steal of a deal. But they're the one team. They always seem to get deals. They always seem to get the right sliding guy. I mean, Derwin James, just from a couple of years ago. I don't see a reason for them to move up, but if they do, it's not for receiver. I think that would be a mistake.
In this class, it would be, and they don't need it. You've got two solid receivers anyway. You've got, we know that Guyton and Josh Palmer can be okay as depth. You need somebody, but in the middle rounds. You don't need to move up to get that.
Yeah, and you can stare at guys. Pierce he may go higher than expected, but like a Bull Melton.
Yeah.
A Kelvin Austin, just look for a guy that can just win vertically.
Because that's really what you're hoping for here.
Yeah.
All right, we'll kick off our favorite segment. Oh, yeah, offensive line help, too, by the way. Did I mention that already?
I mean, you could always use some.
Brian Bulaga is a free agent. Rashawn Slater was a good ad. And Corey Lindsley, obviously, stud center. But, you could always use a little help there. Anyway,
you always use some interior help.
Right on. We'll be back next week. We're going to talk quarterbacks and running backs, draft prospects. So expect some of that to be hotly contested. Expect it to be a fun episode. FFFaceoff.com is where you can find our bios, the podcast, some great work from our partners there. Anthony Servino, Aaron Schill. I guess we can mention Ryan too.
Ryan, Michael Huff. He is the main co-host with Anthony on their show.
Doing some very good work there. I promise we'll get better at promoting that at the beginning of the show. It's still new to us.
Yeah.
At Beerfield. At Beerfield on Twitter. Beerfield Hot. Beerfield 30. I am clearly out of energy after those. The AFC just got me all excited, and I burnt all my energy out. So I think we're done here.
Yeah. We'll see you guys next week for all the fun.
Real fun.